All right, everybody, welcome back to Cash and Sport. Look who's back today. Nangu Sanani, she's come back from, where was she? Eastern Cape, Durban, visiting
Eastern
family and
Cape, man.
friends.
Best
Fans, how
province in the
you doing?
country. I'm good. Good to be back. Lovely episode last week. Gives me a bit of hope for, the youngsters going to Olympics. And let's see. Their squad is still to be announced. So we'll touch on that and have a look at who would make that final football squad.
Yeah, so we're back today talking the reaction to last week's announcement about the initial squad. It's not the final squad, obviously, but the initial squad that's going to be going to the Olympics. So we'll touch on the initial squad itself, where we could potentially see some action, some athletes that are yet to qualify because qualifying ends in a couple of weeks' time, and just in general, what we're looking like in terms of the makeup and the rest of the squads that are still yet to be announced. Okay, so what happens actually when you do an announcement, right? Because there's usually that glitz and glamour type of event where they,
Yeah.
has everyone dressed up in the kit and all of that type of stuff. But sometimes there's athletes who are already gone by then and maybe in a training camp overseas and stuff like that. So how does that actually happen?
Just
Yeah,
to break that down, is that SASCOC generally does announce its team in batches. So
yeah,
everyone was going, where's so and so, where's Custer, where's Wade.
yeah,
Certain athletes still have to qualify. You announce the first batch of the athletes that qualified, and then the next batch, and it will, present Team South Africa probably either at a gathering or at a kit launch or something like that. And that will be our team representing us at the Olympics. So what will happen is most of the squad will leave from South Africa together on a given date.
yeah,
And some athletes by nature of preparations are always in different parts of the country.
yeah,
But I'm yet to see how it's going to actually work this year because I think each athlete is only given 5 days before their actual tournament to control the bubble.
yeah,
So, if you're only competing towards the end of the Olympics, I don't think you'll be allowed to come in early. So it's going to
yeah,
be quite interesting how those are managed, when athletes come in, which athletes, start off the Olympics and which athletes end off. There'll be different batches. And I think I stand to be corrected. But when I was reading up, it seems like all athletes are going to compete and then go home.
yeah.
So that's going to be interesting to see, just in terms of that. But as I say, Team South Africa ideally leaves together after a nice send-off dinner, and then they meet Team South Africa in Tokyo.
Okay. Well, so far we know that Team South Africa right now consists of a few federations, right? There's athletics,
Yeah,
with, I mean, obviously we've got our 4x100 superstars, we've got Gerda
yeah,
Steyn, Yvette van Zyl, and then we've got climbing, Aaron Stekenberg and Chris Crosser. We've got cycling, which has, I mean, the ever-present Daryl Impey in there,
yeah.
Nicholas
Ashley,
Dlamini.
Ashley, Ashley Pasio Mulman is one to look out for there. Very, very good cyclist we have in this country. So
Yeah.
that's one to look out for there. Yeah.
Yeah. Gymnastics, Caitlin Roskrantz. She's another one to look out for. She's, I think, quite an athlete. And then you've got your team, women's hockey. Your girls
Yeah.
are off. That team got announced. Maybe let's touch on that one quickly. Who we're looking at in terms of the list that got picked.
Yeah, look, you've got someone like Lisa Dietliff, who's on
Yeah.
her third Olympic
Olympics.
Games.
Yeah.
So she did 2008, she did 2012, and is
Yeah.
now doing
20.
2020
Yeah.
slash 21. So she's actually the only, if I stand to be corrected, but she's only the only Olympian in that group.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think Quinita Bobs didn't make the last 2012, and this
Yeah.
whole group is new Olympians.
Yeah.
So that's going to be quite interesting. Quite a young group as well.
Yeah.
Some with some little bit of experience. Lillian Debussy is experienced in there. She's been to a tournament. Notable omissions there: Dirkie Chamberlain.
Yeah.
Notable admission. I mean, I would have taken in my team for a little bit of experience.
Yeah.
That's notable in that team. Yeah, so we've got Pumi Mbande is very experienced in the goals. She should come good for us at this tournament. And
Yeah.
when I look at the men's team,
Yeah.
a couple of Olympians in the men's team that have
Yeah.
been. So that's going to be important because it's going to be one of those Olympic games that your senior players are really really important. They need to
Yeah.
play well. They need to bring the experience to the tournament, and especially for there's lack of preparation in our two women's teams. And I
Yeah.
think we touched on it, whereas the European teams are going into Euros next week.
Yeah.
So that's going to play a part in it. But I think we go to besides the hockey, we've got something like sailing. We've
Yeah.
got Bianca Breitenbach in surfing.
Surfing. Yeah.
So I'm hoping we'll see someone in the second batch. We'll see someone like Geordie Smith,
Yeah.
in the surfing, who's a famous African surfing name, who
Yeah.
could come good for us as well. So when we look at these athletes, the first batch has really got some notable names. There's still a lot more to qualify when we're hoping that the bigger bulk who constitute of that 200
Yeah.
we will bring us more medal hopefuls. So I'm banking. Yeah, man, I'm banking. As we said this last time on the athletics chat, banking on
Yeah.
someone like Akani, who's at another Olympics.
Yeah.
Um, Yvette did well.
Yeah.
She broke the 50 kilometer record
Yeah. The
recently
Old
in
Mutual one.
Gqeberha.
What, last week? Yeah.
Nedbank
Yeah. Nedbank. I mean, sorry.
was a
Yeah.
Nedbank showcase, and Yvette van Zyl, Gelde is running well.
Yeah.
So it will be interesting to see where they fare on the world stage.
Yeah. And we've got a pretty quick quartet of 4x100 athletes. I mean that final group's not yet decided. But we've got a pretty
Mm.
good chance of possibly meddling. Obviously, we haven't seen what the Americans can do and the Jamaicans.
Yeah,
But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, Akani is already out in Italy.
training. Yeah,
Starting to get his prep and really dialing in. All right. In any case, we have some athletes that are still yet to qualify, and some pretty big names that we're hoping to see in the next batch. Obviously, one is Wade van Niekerk. We haven't
yeah,
really seen him run. He's been out for quite some time. He had an ACL injury. He's back running, but he's yet to qualify. Casta, obviously, she's had two attempts at the 5,000. She still hasn't qualified yet, but she's pretty hopeful to qualify.
yeah,
Um, Precious Mashele, Bulele Matanga, yeah, still yet to qualify, but they have until the 29th of June to
yeah.
qualify, so they have a month still to qualify anyway.
Mm.
So that's not too much of a worry. I still think we'll see Casta there. Wade, I'm pretty confident that we'll see. Actually, I think all of those guys we'll see
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
Olympics.
So it's one of those things. Look, it's not a worry. These guys will qualify, barring those events not taking place because of COVID reasons. Then we might have a bit of a problem on our hands. But
Yeah,
I think if those events carry on that they need to qualify, they'll be fine. I've got faith in that group of athletes, is that they're also tracking well to
yeah,
be able to qualify.
yeah,
We saw Wade at South African champs earlier on this year. He was looking fine. He was looking good.
yeah,
So there's no panic stations just yet with those athletes. Those guys will, they've got management around them who are priming and prepping them to be able to run those races in qualification time.
yeah. And athletes know, where they are. They know physically where they are. They know where the fast tracks are. Sometimes you get a situation where the track just isn't conducive for you to run fast times, but that's okay because
Yeah,
they know exactly where they're going to run those fast times and they're going to run those qualifying times. So it's not so much of a problem. I think they'll be fine. We also have
yeah,
a number of federations that haven't been announced yet, where It's either there's problems in the like in the case of Boxing SA where it's kind of up in the air really, as to, what's going on, who's going to go, etc. But then you've got other ones which are staples, like the rugby sevens. I mean, we're ranked second in the
Yeah,
world. Those guys should go. Um,
yeah. So so those kind of things, it's all about finalizing. You want to see, look at the football. I think the football guys have got a tournament coming up now,
yeah,
or a once off
in the
game.
UAE,
You
yeah,
want to see one, yeah, you want to see one or two more players as a coach
yeah,
to literally, you've got two players to make a selection from, and you
yeah,
know the bulk of your team, probably 90% of your team is known already, but you just want to see these last two players and how they'll perform on a stage, then you name the team. And
yeah,
it's one of those things that's always kind of like, especially in a bigger team sport or boxing, you want to take it to the last moment to see who's fit. Can I give another player one more chance to get fit before I
yeah,
say either they're going to Tokyo or they're not going to Tokyo? So those are the kind of, besides qualification, some teams have qualified, but they haven't named their teams or squads to go. Or I
yeah,
think something like canoeing. I think we do have a boat that's qualified, but it's kind of like naming the athletes that will be in that boat.
yeah,
So it's always a process. Qualification and naming of teams is always a process to see who will make the final team to Tokyo.
yeah. But it, we've got a couple of very interesting weeks coming up because those names will definitely be finalized soon. The major nations, I mean, Great Britain and the rest of them have been announcing um,
Yeah,
almost the majority of their squads in the past week or so. So we should be seeing a lot of international frenzy with regards to the announcements of almost complete squads, give or take,
correct.
one or two athletes here or there. But generally, in the main, that within the next 2 weeks, we'll definitely know who's definitely going to the Olympics and who's not. Going
Yeah.
further down the list of federations that haven't announced yet, we've got tennis. We have a red hot, tennis player in Lloyd Harris right
Mhm.
now. We don't know whether he's
Yeah.
going to go to the Olympics. He did represent SA at the Junior Olympics when he was younger, but this is a different stage now. He's still also playing in major tournaments right now, so that
Yeah.
whether he decides to go or not might be something else. It's interesting, in these sports where guys are like, maybe I want to go and play Roland Garros instead, and then go and play something else, and
Wimbledon afterwards
yeah,
as well.
Wimbledon afterwards.
Those
Yeah,
kind of things. So Roger Federer has done, Olympic Games.
yeah,
So he's going. Maybe it's someone else's turn now. I won't want to be away from the family and the
yeah,
four kids and the wife from that long.
yeah,
So it will be interesting in terms of the top athletes.
yeah. And it's a crazy world. And COVID has thrown up a
Yeah.
lot of spanners. There's a lot of sport going on right now, and
Yeah.
the Olympics is smack bang in the middle of all of it. And I mean, you're going to be watching the Euro 2020 games and also watching the
And
Olympics,
then
and then also watching, what's this, uh,
British and
Wimbledon at the
Irish
same
Lions.
time, British and Irish Lions.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be a crazy
We've
time.
we've yeah.
And then
I
just to
mean,
wrap up the list, yeah,
we in for a lot of sports, and for sports fans, we are excited. Just watching a lot of sports, making sure we glued onto our TVs and athletes bringing home medals.
yeah, it's gonna strain a lot of relationships, this thing. But in any case, wrapping up the final list of federations, right? So we've got skating, that's also not
Mhm.
confirmed, although we've got Brandon Valharo, he was young. I mean, he won the World Junior Skating Championships when he was 14.
Correct.
Crazy. Let's see how it goes at the Olympics. Breakdancing, I'm looking forward to that one. If we
Yeah,
get to go, I will definitely watch that.
watch that
Badminton,
definitely.
diving, equestrian, triathlon, and yeah, as I said, boxing earlier. Boxing just seems to be all over the place. We don't know
Yeah,
who's coming or going with boxing. It's hopefully, we've South Africa's got a strong boxing pedigree and heritage, so hopefully
yeah.
we can send some athletes who can represent us well.
I'm actually looking forward, besides boxing, I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to the triathlon, because
yeah,
in Richard Murray and Henry Schoeman, we've got two athletes there.
yeah,
Schoeman medaled last time we were out in Rio.
yeah.
So he's a potential. So I'm looking forward to that. I don't know where he's at the moment. He is unfortunately one of the athletes who actually had two bouts of COVID.
Yeah, I can't even imagine how you would, physiologically, it's tough on one. Twice is just, yeah,
Yeah.
that's another level. But these guys are supremely fit, and the
Yeah.
determination to get you through to the Olympics is something else. I'm pretty sure we'll see them
Correct.
there. And
Correct.
talking about
Yeah.
COVID, you know, right now the country is kind of struggling with our vaccination program, but there's been
Yeah.
some really good news for athletes. The
Yeah.
IOC was meant to send over some vaccines, which would have been a double dose, two-dose treatment, but
Ex-
it seems like athletes are going to get vaccinated through the single dose vaccines, which were meant for
Johnson and
health
Johnson.
workers. The Johnson and Johnson vaccines that were left over and are about to expire, the government has decided, well,
Mm.
our athletes are going to go and represent us. All our athletes are going to be vaccinated, which means that, there's not going to be any worries about any athletes potentially getting sick. And,
Yeah.
well, it's also their choice at the end of the day. Let's not forget that. But
No, for sure.
we have, a huge boost to SASCOC as well, because that cost of vaccinating people and making sure that they're safe is kind of been taken care of now.
Yeah. And I think we need to clarify that, because there's been a little bit of talk about it. It's that um, there's no athletes taking a vaccine away from a deserving 60-year-old or health worker.
For
It's
health
terms of,
worker, yeah,
so yeah, Pfizer had sponsored vaccinations for athletes all over the world, if you're
yeah,
going, athletes and personnel going. So I think it's just that Pfizer batch hasn't arrived, so the athletes got the Johnson and Johnson.
exactly.
That's my understanding of it. So
That's exactly what happened, yeah.
this, yeah,
They just haven't
so no
arrived yet,
athletes,
yeah,
yeah, so no athletes have basically juked the system or been prioritized to be ahead of healthcare workers. But I think it's
yeah,
just notable to say that there's a sponsored amount of doses that have been given by Pfizer to the IOC to give to countries in Olympic countries. So that's good. That's a relief. And I chatted to some of the girls. Some of the girls wanted, had a few side effects.
yeah,
Just your normal, fever the next day or a lame arm, but everyone seems to be on track
yeah,
and they got their vaccines, so which is good.
yeah,
But I mean, the whole vaccine thing, man, it's some athletes will have, some won't,
mm,
and it's been interesting. So the IOC
mm,
has now got a waiver,
yeah,
and a waiver for the Olympic Games is nothing new. You do have to sign certain paperwork, but let me actually read a part of it. So it says, I agree to participate in the games at my own risk and own responsibility,
yeah,
including any impact on my participation to and or performance in the games.
wow,
Seriously bodily harm, serious bodily injury,
yeah,
or even death raised by the potential exposure to health hazard, such as transmission of COVID-19 and other
hmm,
infectious or extreme heat conditions while attending the games. That's an interesting one, because
right,
I don't think extreme heat conditions has ever been added to a waiver. It's always
yeah,
been diseases, that kind of natural causes. So now you've included COVID and included heat to this waiver that the athletes have to sign. So there's been a bit of uproar, you
mm,
know, take the pressure off the athletes, remove COVID from there. Um, I don't know, man. It's a waiver, and indemnity forms are things that generally people have to sign at events, at tournaments. But I
yeah,
think putting that whole, you know, we don't take any responsibility outlook on it at
yeah,
all
yeah,
is kind of like, most of countries have COVID insurance these days. No athlete, I think, is going to, say put the full blame on you. Understandably, some athletes, you have to sign this to compete. It's one of those things. So it'll be
yeah,
interesting, the discussion. I think we had the IOC Athletes Forum last week, actually, where the
Yeah.
questions did come up for the IOC president, and he said he's kind of noted the concern around the vaccines around the
The
waiver
waiver.
from the
Yeah.
athletes, the waiver. So there is talk. Then I think there's been a reassurance that unfortunately it's nothing illegal, and
Yeah.
then the first tournament to enforce a waiver. By the sounds of it, that's what they're leaning on, the IOC. So those were kind of the snippets that came out of that athletes forum, which was held last week virtually.
Yeah, yeah, but I also guess at the same time, I mean, they've had so much trouble with trying to make sure that this event goes ahead. I mean, the
For sure.
Japanese public don't really want it there. There's big concerns around COVID. There's athletes like Matthijs de Ligt, who plays for, for the Netherlands, who said, "I'm not taking a COVID vaccine at Euro 2020." And you might have other athletes
Yeah,
who are saying that they're not going to take a vaccine at the Olympics. What if those athletes then
yeah,
get sick? You know, is the IOC liable? It's probably the safer route for them to go to, to put a waiver in there just to protect themselves. But yeah, from an athlete's
for
point
sure.
of view, it's a bit of a bitter one to swallow because I mean, you're not they're the ones who are forcing the fact that the Olympics have to happen,
Yeah,
yeah, the extreme heat one
and,
for
and,
me
and
is really interesting. Like, how hot is it going to be in
yeah.
Japan? Really?
So this was kind of interesting. As far as I can remember, I mean,
Yeah,
this was 12 13 years ago. I don't think the Beijing one had a heat line in it, and Beijing
yeah,
was pretty hot.
yeah,
And we knew Beijing would have been hot at the time. We went to acclimatize in Korea for our holding camp. I remember that. So just to make sure we were used to the conditions. Um, I know a few athletes that are training in heat chambers, simulating hotter conditions
wow,
than they're in at the moment. Yeah,
yeah,
globally, just athletes are trying to simulate those conditions. And it's going to be interesting. They're predicting high temperatures. It's going to be hot, but it's yeah, to put it in a waiver and go extreme heat conditions.
yeah,
So, but also, where does the responsibility lie? So you wake up on marathon day and it's extreme heat. Does the race carry on?
yeah.
Yes, you know what I mean. So,
That's a problem.
IOC will have to. That's a problem. IOC will have to, assume some responsibility, some
Yeah,
risk, and make sure that the athlete's safety is first and foremost, because
yeah,
that's what we're dealing with here: athletes and personnel safety within that time frame in
yeah,
Tokyo.
yeah, yeah. That one's a bit of a problem for me. I don't see how you can. That's an act of God, right? It's a natural thing. And I don't see how you can absolve yourself from having to take care of
Yeah,
athletes in the case of extreme heat.
especially as we discussed
That's
in NABS, like something like that. If you do wake up in the morning and of the marathon and it's hot, and IOC does carry on with it, then you signed a waiver, yes, but you know
I mean, really?
the
Really?
race
Come
had to
on.
carry
You
on.
can't tell
So
me that you
exactly,
guys decided to carry on the race. The temperatures were such that I could potentially lose my life. And if something goes
yeah,
wrong, you're saying no, you're not going to be held liable for allowing the race to continue. I don't see
yeah,
how they can pass that one. It's going
yeah. But I
it's a
hope. I mean, my hope is that athlete safety will be the number one underlying thing here, and they've shown it.
yeah,
IOC, we've got reported to them. They've shown it in terms of the testing that is going to be going on in the village
yeah,
around the Olympics. The vaccines now
yeah,
administered to all countries, sorry, that are participating.
yeah,
So we've seen that they want a safe and as safe as possible for the athletes,
yeah.
and kudos to them that they're taking that into account.
Yeah. Yeah, there is now consideration as well for whether locals, because there is obviously not going to be any international fans, but whether locals will even
Yeah,
be allowed and whether they'll have to present a negative COVID test to even get into stadiums and so on. So they're putting a
yeah.
lot of measures in
So
place to try and
that
ensure.
that is actually coming out on 8th of June.
Yeah,
I read. So 8th of June, the Spectator Playbook will come out.
yeah,
So we've had two, call it athlete focused playbooks,
yeah,
and village and that kind of things, and how COVID protocols will work. So
yeah,
two playbooks that were issued have been geared to more the athletes. Now, this third playbook, which should be out by, as I say, probably next week,
yeah.
will focus on the spectators. So it will just deal with how spectators will have to either test or produce a COVID test or whatever in that environment to make sure that they are safe as well within that environment. And that's, I really hope for the Olympic sake and the people of Japan is that if we can get a certain number of spectators within the stadiums, they go out and enjoy them.
Yeah.
If their numbers are also dipping, it will be good. Their vaccine program seems to be on full steam ahead. So if these guys can, if locals can get into the stadiums and embrace it. So I'm hoping, money has been lost on tickets already. So give access to the locals. I don't know how they'll do it in terms of who wants to go watch, but you're already in a situation where certain, the parts of the country just don't want the Olympics in their country. So the best you can do, bring them in closer and let them enjoy as
just a little
best
bit of
that they
goodwill,
can.
man. Just
I
some
think
goodwill.
that's the bottom line. Some goodwill to say thank you for letting us invade your country for a couple of years, and then at this point in the pandemic, even invaded even more, because that's what an Olympic Games is foreign nationals coming into your country and enjoying the best of a month, but you've been prepping for 4 years, 5 years for this. I mean, 2020 was awarded in 2013, 14. So it's been a good 6.5 years of your people's lives being changed for this big tournament and event. So I really hope when everything's said and done, the people of Japan get to a little bit of enjoyment. Yes, it's during a pandemic. There's calls of should it be happening, should it be not. But if it does go ahead, I hope people of Japan get to enjoy a little bit of the Olympics.
Yeah, and we hope that it will be a fantastic Olympics. It'll be one to remember. It will definitely be one to remember because it'll be the first Olympics during COVID time. And there could be all sorts of interesting things happening at these Olympics. We've seen that sport in general has reacted very interestingly to COVID. And we hope that the results that we see in Japan will be exciting. That's been the recap from Cash and Sport on the initial squad announcement. Looking forward to what's to come in terms of athletes to qualify. We'll be back again next week to take you through another chapter as we run up to the Olympic Games in about 5 weeks' time now.
Yeah, it's getting closer and closer.
Yeah, it's
very
getting
exciting.
closer and
closer. 23rd of July.
Yeah,
so
and it's
just
I can't wait. I can't wait. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun. We'll see you again next week.
Yeah.